Have you missed the boat when it comes to short-term rentals? You've heard all about Airbnbs, VRBO, right? Those short-term rentals, those rentals that you can stay in overnight or a couple of nights, even up to, some will go as long as 364 days a year. The question is, have you waited too long? Is the market already so saturated that there's no longer an opportunity for you to find inside of short-term rentals? Here's the good news. Now is the best time to get started. The two best times to plant a tree are 20 years ago and today. And because you didn't plant 20 years ago, let's get started today. So here are a couple of things to consider as you're looking to start a short-term rental business. The first thing is where? Where do you want to get started? As you decide where you want your short-term rental to be, you need to learn all about the municipality that you're going to start investing in. So you need to decide where you want to put a short-term rental and then look at the city, look at the state, and make sure that you understand all of the guidelines around short-term rentals. There are a lot of cities around the entire nation that are just now getting started on creating guidelines with regard to short-term rentals, but then you'll have other states like Arizona who made a statewide mandate and said short-term rentals are going to be legal, but here are the guidelines that you gotta follow. So as you're deciding to get started in short-term rentals, make sure that you understand the municipality that you're going to be investing in and that you understand all of their guidelines, all of their concerns, all of their thoughts. If you are unsure, go into the city offices and ask. Talk to the people there. They're very helpful. They're going to point you in the right direction so that you know who to talk to about what. My name is Jay Stark, and I am president of Renatus, an online education company focused on real estate investing. In addition to that, I have over 20 years personally investing in real estate. Here's a couple of reasons why you might want to get involved in short-term rentals. One, it doesn't take your own credit typically as you get started. Two, it's typically a lower cost than other forms of real estate when you start investing. And three, it doesn't take the same level of knowledge as you get started. So you need to be aware of a few key things. I'm going to talk about a few of those today, but you don't need as much experience as you are starting your short-term rental as you might in some of the other strategies. One of the things that you always have to be aware of in short-term rentals is the occupancy rate. It can vary wildly depending on your location, depending on the time of year, depending on how close you are to different amenities and how you market your property. I have a good friend of mine who he not only has his own short-term rentals, but he has a short-term rental management company. And he really expanded on the idea of being able to market yourself to the people that are actually looking to stay in your short-term rentals. So for example, he looks to set up his short-term rentals where the interior can support it, where there's good, traffic flow and all of that, that's pretty close to entertainment type activities, whether it's movie theaters or anything else, as well as near hospitals. So he likes to particularly create a situation where people who are either with a patient at a hospital or are the patient at the hospital have a place that they can stay for a short term, where they can come in and have a place they can call their own for the time that they need it. Now, some of the cool parts about short-term rentals from the perspective of the consumer, from the customer, is that they're going to get a furnished place that's going to provide for them everything they need, save their own personal toiletries and their clothes, so that they can actually be more comfortable in that space. That is such a cool opportunity that really has come to light, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of it, and that's why you're thinking about short-term rentals. After you've decided where you're going to get set up, after you've decided who your demographic is or who the target customer is going to be of your short-term rental, it's important for you to start doing research. One of the best ways to do research on the area that you want to get set up in is start getting onto those short-term rental sites and look at what else is available, how they're marketing themselves in the area. If there's not a lot of short-term rentals in the area that you're looking to go into, why is that? Is the municipality really opposed to having short-term rentals in their space, or is it something else entirely? Maybe somebody just hasn't had the idea yet and you could be the first one. So in addition to the municipality you're investing in, the infrastructure, and the demographic, the target that you're going after, it's important for you to really think about why a customer chooses a short-term rental over a hotel or any other form of temporary housing. Short-term rentals are often fully furnished. They provide a fully stocked kitchen, a full-size refrigerator, a full-size microwave, a place where they can really have a refuge that is not just a hotel. In addition to having a fully furnished apartment or place that they can stay that's maybe a little bit more comfortable, it's the cost as well. If you do a side-by-side comparison of what's available as a short-term rental versus a hotel room, oftentimes short-term rentals are going to come in at a lower cost. Now granted, not for one night or two, but if you're extending to 3 to 5 to 15 nights, short-term rentals are going to be really beneficial for you. The reason why a shorter stay may not be as cost-effective in a short-term rental is because of the cleaning fee and the other management fees that are associated with it. In addition, I want you to think about where short-term rentals are located and what kind of immersive experience it may create for the customer. The last time that you traveled afar, like let's say that you went to Italy, Europe, South America, wherever it was, did you find yourself craving more of an opportunity to engage with the culture? That's what short-term rentals really provide. They provide an opportunity to go into an area of town that is not as commercialized as where most of the hotels are going to be, and you're going to be able to have a more immersive experience. Here's a couple of things that you really need to be concerned about as you're starting your business. The first one is that because a short-term rental is going to be very popular, you're going to have an increased wear and tear on your place. You need to make sure that you account for that as you are pricing yourself and as you are planning long-term. As well as you need to be aware that sometimes cleaners can be difficult to find that are going to be regular for you. In fact, that's been the #1 complaint once a short-term rental has been created from my perspective, is an owner has a hard time keeping a good cleaner around for very long. So you need to make sure that you're aware of that as you get started. Another thing that you really need to keep in mind is that a bad guest can ruin the experience for everybody. Not just for the people that are in your short-term rental, but for all of the neighbors as well. If you are staying in that location for an extended period of time, meaning that you as a short-term rental operator are going to be in this location for an extended period of time, you need to have good relationships with the neighbors, and one bad guest can really change that for everybody involved. Make sure that you create a good relationship with the neighbors by giving them your contact information and just saying, hey, I want you to know we're doing our level best to make sure that not only does your property stay as pristine as possible, but that you have a great experience with the guests that we're bringing in as well. So if you have any concerns or questions, reach out to me directly. I would love to be able to help you out. There's a pretty significant difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental that you need to be aware of. If somebody gets into a long-term rental, meaning that they sign a lease that's 6 months or more, they typically cover utilities on their own, so the gas, electric, trash, sewer, all that fun stuff. They'll put that in their own name. They're going to take care of their own internet provider, any of their entertainments that they want. They're going to take care of that all on their own. For a short-term rental, that's going to be the responsibility of the operator, of you. So you need to make sure that you are adding that into your price as you get started. Another thing to be really careful of is to ensure that you have a rainy day fund. Right? Every single property out there has wear and tear on it, and over time, things will fail. Whether it's the plumbing's gonna back up, maybe there's an electrical issue because somebody shorted something out that or plugged something in that they shouldn't have, or if the AC goes out, the furnace goes out, the hot water heater goes out. You just need to be prepared for these things, and it's really prudent for you to create connections with individuals that can help you very quickly as you need it. Meaning, prepare now. Create a relationship with an HVAC guy. Create a relationship with a plumber. Create a relationship with a handyman so that as you need help, you know who to call before you've ever encountered the problem. Here's a little pro tip for you. Make sure that you are very aware of the insurance that you have on your property. It doesn't matter if you're doing a lease arbitrage strategy. It doesn't matter if you're doing it out of a home that you own. Make sure that your insurance is designed properly for that unit. The last thing that you want is for a guest to go into your property to break something, and then you have no insurance to cover it, and it's coming all out of your pocket. That'll suck up your profit quicker than anything else. I've heard horror stories of individuals who have done everything right. They set up their property well, they had great management, great marketing, they've had great tenants, and then something happens. I had one friend in particular who had a fire in one of his units, and he didn't have the proper insurance to cover that. Be really careful to make sure that your insurance is designed so that it will just protect you if the worst case scenario takes place. It's not enough to just have insurance. you need to ensure that you have the proper insurance for a short-term rental. Read your entire policy. I know that it's boring, that it's a lot of legal jargon in there, but make sure that you understand that from top to bottom to make sure that you are covered in case anything happens. Don't leave it up to chance. Don't just assume, oh, well, somebody told me that I'm good to go. Insurance companies are a business, and while they promote themselves as being there to protect you, which they are also there to make money off of you. You are their customer. So you need to make sure that you understand exactly what insurance will cover and exactly what they won't cover in case anything happens to your property. One of the first things that you need to decide as you get started, beyond just the municipality, beyond the demographic of people that you're marketing to, beyond the infrastructure and what's available near your property, you need to decide how you're going to get into the property. There are a couple of strategies, especially with short-term rentals, that are really, really interesting. If you are looking to sublease a property, meaning that you go in and create a lease with an apartment or with a home or whatever it is, with the right to sublease it, you need to make sure that you have that right in the contract so that you can do what's called arbitrage, meaning that you are going to sublease the apartment on a short-term rental basis and are going to have your guests in and out of there constantly. Now, the reason why a lot of apartment complexes don't allow this is they don't like having that high of turnover. A reason why they might like it, though, is that you might actually be offering an amenity to their guests. So people, when they have family come into town, if they live in an apartment, they may not have room to host their own family. But if you were to provide a short-term rental inside of the facility that they actually live in, they may really find a lot of value in that. Another thing that short-term rentals add, another benefit that short-term rentals add to apartment complexes, is they are typically very well maintained and very clean. How many apartments have you lived in that had a cleaner coming in after every single stay? Meaning after every single guest that you had in your place, how many times did you have that cleaner come in? Well, short-term rentals are proficient at bringing cleaners in after every single guest to ensure their property is immaculate. Not only that, but they are more concerned with maintenance than an apartment complex would be. So you might have a super on site who's willing to handle a couple of things, but if you go in and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna handle all of that for you, all of a sudden, you look just a little bit better than their typical customer. A couple other things. The people that are really going to be most attracted to short-term rentals are those individuals that have good communication skills and are very attracted to systems. Putting the correct system in place to manage all of the different aspects of a short-term rental, and you need to make sure that you are a proficient problem solver. If you are attracted to those three things, then short-term rentals may be the avenue that you've been looking for to segue into real estate investing. If you are looking to get into short-term rentals to build up strictly passive income, that can be a really good avenue if you have a management company. If you're going to get into it and manage it on your own, it's not going to be passive. It's going to be very active. You're going to be involved in the day-to-day operation in ensuring that the communication is timely, is accurate, and is getting to the people that you are looking to communicate with, your guests. You need to be aware that things go sideways all the time. Let's say that you had a hiccup in your network, meaning that there was a temporary delay in your network and now all of a sudden one of your devices has reset itself. Well, you got to be available so that you can get in there, or somebody that you've contracted with can get in there and get it fixed as quickly as possible. You need to be aware that tenants will do silly things all the time. I had a buddy of mine in Chicago who literally just told me that on Saturday he had to leave what he was doing right then because one of his short-term rental guests locked themselves out of the short-term rental again. This was like the second or third time they had done it. So just be aware that those are just some of the simple day-to-day issues that you're going to need to handle if you don't have a management company in place. Now, again, if you're attracted to having that system, if you're attracted to interacting with people and being a problem solver, then this could be a really good way for you to get into real estate investing and a really good way for you to start building up your book of business. One of the cool parts about short-term rentals is if you are in a place that is marketable and your vacancy rate is low enough, you can make a lot more money doing a short-term rental than you could doing a midterm or even a long-term rental. That's something that is very attractive for a lot of people. Depending on how you got into it, they may be paying your monthly mortgage payment at the same time, meaning that you're building equity in the property at the same time that you are making money off of the day-to-day operation. Now, we talked a little bit about that lease arbitrage, but what about those people that say, hey, I've got an extra room in my place that I want to rent out, or I've got a mother-in-law apartment in the bottom of my home that I want to make a short-term rental? Again, make sure that you know all of the rules of your municipalities, because they sometimes can get very, very specific on what is allowed and what is not allowed. Definition, for example, between tenant and guest can be a massive factor when you start to consider things like squatters' rights. What happens if somebody overstays their reservation and they're not leaving? What rights do you have? You need to make sure that you understand all of that. So those are things to be really, really aware of as you get started in short-term rentals. We haven't even gotten into a lot of the fun parts about short-term rentals, which is some of the unique aspects of short-term rentals that you can add. You can create a complete unique experience for people that is immersive beyond just what a normal short-term rental would be. There are all sorts of ways that you can make yourself more and more marketable. You know, we recently had an opportunity to talk with the Renatus practitioner instructor who does nothing but short-term rentals on this Invest Edge video. I recommend that you go and watch that to get a little bit more information about short-term rentals and about their viability in today's market.